Hi, welcome back. I'm Linda. Today I just finished up one of my last of my fall paintings. Got pretty pines in the back, evergreens, splashes of bright yellow and a little bit of orange in there, red with a pretty stream, and lots of boulders, rocks. You're gonna love it. So get your paints out, get ready, so let's get started. And here are the paints I used. Acrylics white, black, phthalo blue, Van Dyke brown, green, and cad yellow, and one small sponge. Oils, liquid clear, titanium white, phthalo blue, lamp black, sap green, Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna, orange, yellow ochre, cad yellow pale hue, and cad red hue. And so I've got a little plastic palette here. I put my acrylics down. I've got white, black, brown, green, and I'm dipping in a little bit of phthalo blue, mixing in what was with white. And I'm putting just a touch of black in there. I just wanted a real uh kind of a pale blue tinge of darkness here and there, but I'm gonna add some white in some areas. But I'm gonna dip in that blue, a little bit of white, and just making my sky. Just smoothing that out the best I can. It's drying really fast, so you gotta work fast. It's acrylic. And bringing down some of that sky. Not quite halfway. Just blending it in the best you can. And so now I'm gonna start forming my river, my little stream. And down below half, and I'm going at an angle because the river, the stream is gonna be well, kind of zigzaggy. And so I'm gonna make that blue in there, put that water in ahead of time. 'Cause I'm mixing in a lot of green and I didn't want to use oils right here. So still tapping in that blue gray, making kind of a Z stroke there, shaping my stream. Gonna end up pretty close to the bottom there. Just blending that in. Trying to soften it up the best you can. Putting in some darker areas. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix in a little bit of that brown and sap green with a touch of black, just a touch. I want it, oh, medium to dark green. So I'm tapping in there with my little sponge, and I'm gonna make some nice little designs in there that look more like trees in the back or distance. And the more you tap in there, the lighter it's gonna be. I'm gonna go straight up, and you can tilt your sponge and get the shapes that you want. Now this is just background color. There's no really set pattern. I'm just tapping in some darker areas of kind of an olive green. Gonna be adding a little bit of yellow in that in a bit. And I'm gonna go down probably just uh above the halfway mark on that canvas. Just tapping here and there, leaving some of that sky open because you want to leave an opening in the middle. And just tapping some more, just making like you're making bushes, but it's just background color for the bushes that we're going to be putting in. And I've tapped in a little bit of yellow there. I'm going into a little bit of the brown with a touch of white, making it a little bit lighter, a lighter brown. So I'm going to use my little sponge, tap it in there. You're going to pick up some of those dark ones, but that's all right. And just tap at the base of that tree line there. Just kind of tap at the base. Just getting in some background color. That's all we're doing. And I twist and turn and use different angles of that sponge. It just creates some neat shapes. Going into a little bit of green, darker green there. Okay, I wasn't crazy about that plastic palette, so I got a regular one and put my same colors on that palette, only I did add yellow on there. So I'm doing some brown with touches of the green. I'm just kind of mixing the colors up a little bit because it's just background color for what we're gonna make. Because that's gonna be a pine forest here eventually, and a lot of these shapes will show through. So I put some of a little bit of yellow in the center there where the opening is for some sunlight, I guess. Going all the way to the top. Going back into the green with a touch of yellow, little bit of brown mix, and just blending it in. Base color. Leaving that center part open. Just filling the some of those open areas a little bit. Because it's pretty dense back there. So I want to make sure it's, okay, so I let everything dry really good. And so now I'm going to put on liquid clear. Got a little 1 inch. I'm going to put a real thin coat all over. Very thin. Make sure everything's covered all the way to the bottom. And just smooth it out the best you can. Then I'm going to take a blue shop towel, fold it in half, and then again, and I'm going to gently wipe over the top of that and get all the excess oil off. You don't want it thick in places because it will make your paint run. And just keep going till you don't see much on that paper. I love the shop towel because it doesn't leave any fibers behind. Okay, now I'm back into oils. And I've gone into a little bit of a titanium white. I'm going in the center part to lighten that area up, kind of a misty look. I'm going to put a little white down underneath that tree line into the water in places, tapping to give it a little foggy look in the water too. So now I'm going into the sap green with a touch of yellow. So I want it kind of a pretty olive green, but a little darker than what we put down. And just tapping in, leaving some of the areas open, creating some leaves back there. Again, sap green with a little bit of yellow, making that a light um, olive green, and angling those trees kind of upward a little bit. See, I'm going upward at an angle. Trees are kind of reaching for the sun, you might say. And some of that background that we put in there, the acrylic, those will show. Those will show through. So it'll give it a nice full forest look. Just mixing up. I'm adding a little bit of brown in there, Van Dyke brown, to make it a little bit darker. And just tapping in there, tapping, making my leaves, forming bushes, going just about to the top. Leaving a few of those areas open. Now on the right side, it's going to be pretty dense. It's going to be very, very dark. Same with the left. Dark sides are more, the center is more open. So again, this is just base color in oils. So I'm going to start forming my angles of my stream pretty quick here. Going into a little bit of yellow ochre, tapping some in. Here and there's going to be some pretty fall trees in the distance. Going into a little burnt sienna. Just forming those bushes way in the distance. Now I've got my little fan brush there, tapping in. Leave it a little yellow ochre and yellow. I'm just making the angle of the woods there and where the stream bank is. Kind of marking where I'm going to have a dark hill, grassy areas. It's base color. That's Van Dyke uh, brown with a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Gonna make it a reddish brown. Just shaping where my stream way in the distance. So it's gonna be a lot of foliage alongside of that, the waters there. And go upward. There's gonna be a bunch of trees there, angling down, showing where the bank is gonna end. I've got a 3/4 inch scruffy brush. I got it off online. It's a one stroke Donna Dewberry. It makes really nice bushes and grassies. So I stroke downward with it, and it's an amazing brush. And it gets in little tight places too. So I've got my little scruffy, and I'm going into a little bit of the darker color, green. It's a mixture of colors here. It's fall, and so you'll see. Don't be afraid to put a little color in the background. So I'm going to start my bank on the left. It's going to angle inward. But again, I'm going to put some dark banks in there first for the base color, dark brown. And just shape those banks downward like going into the water. Now you find later that I did uh, narrow it up a little bit. It was a little too wide, but for now it's okay. Go ahead and follow me because I'm just kind of winging it here. I'm looking at a picture and you gotta stand back and stare at it a little bit. And sometimes you make a little changes here and there. But for now, I'm just gonna work on putting the background trees and shaping the bank out. Because there are gonna be some big tall pines in there. But I want some things going on behind those pines. So I have to do this first before I put my pines in. Shaping some taller bushes, darker in the back. Using that little scruffy on the edge, it makes nice for just putting in the bank. Drawing a line, I want it real narrow at the in the beginning of that stream, real ever so narrow, and then it gradually comes out. It's like it's disappearing in the distance. And working working in the bank across there, deciding exactly how far I want to go in toward the center. And I'm tipping downward with that brush because that does create some little grassies in there, and it's not flat, there's something going on. And I will be putting rocks and things in there too, so. But here I'm working my way in, trying to shape that stream. Kind of eyeballing that picture. So I know it starts around the center, about the middle of the canvas. That's where this large mass is going to end up. So I will be bringing that peak out a little bit farther yet. But the color is Van Dyke brown with burnt sienna. It's a pretty reddish brown. So there's leaves that have fallen there, and they are various colors. I'll put some more down here in a minute. Okay, I decided to add, I'm going to put, I don't know what you want to call them. It's where the water runs over a little bit of land that's open there. It's like an open area. So I'm going to put a few of those in there just to add interest. So I see it on my picture and it looks so pretty. So I'm going to, hopefully I can do the same. But I'm just putting in some land, a little bit of land here and there that crosses over. It's in the center of that stream. And my little scruffy works pretty good, just shading in the areas. I will change that quite a bit here. But so I'm going on the other side. I'm going to curve around. So I do have a bank there. And that's going to come all the way down. It's going to be a pretty dark area there. I'll be putting some rocks in the corner. Studying my picture. So I want to know exactly where the water that's going to be running over the land area. I know it looks kind of weird now. Putting in a landmass there. making the bottom quite dark, but I'll be adding some greens and yellows down there. It'll be kind of like look like swamp water, but it's sounds awful, but it'll look really pretty. So I'm going into green, the olive green, some yellow, and sap green. I'm using my scruffy. I use that quite a bit. So I'm going to put in some bushes way in the back. I'm pushing downward with it with the brush or just tapping, whatever works. If you find a nice pattern, go with it. I'm tapping again into that olive green, little bit of yellow, more yellow, I guess. And I'm going to do just the top of those little hills. I don't know what you want to call them. They're part of the bank along the stream. Accenting with a little more yellow here and there. And, it's nice to have the dark and the light because, without the dark, there is no light. So you need to have those dark areas in there. It really makes things pop. All right, so now I'm putting in some of my big old pines. And I'm not very good at drawing straight lines with my liner brush. So this is my little way of making straight lines, and then I fill it in to make my big old trees. The palette knife works really good. It keeps my wrist straight, and I can go all the way to the top without squiggling. I tried it the other way, and I didn't. I was just too shaky. I don't know. I couldn't hold it right. So if you can do it with the palette knife, get a nice roll on it, just like you would with a roll painting the white snow on the mountains. It breaks. It works really cool doing this way too. And I just go all the way to the top. I'm marking my trees so I know exactly where they're gonna be. Now I've got a it's not a thin liner, but it's still a liner brush, thicker one. I'm just gonna go in between. I'm gonna go in between those two lines, and voila, I've got a nice straight pine tree. It works because I don't want to touch everything's wet. It's hard to draw straight lines on that unless they got a board. I know I've seen some people that have boards that they rest their wrist on. I don't have one of those, so palette knife works good for me. So I'm just filling in between my skinny lines there. I'm going to go and straighten up the base and straighten up a little bit here and there. Okay, I'm going to make another big one on the side. Actually, it's going to be two or a couple of them in there. I'm going to attempt to make a nice straight line there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to have that roll just right. Actually, a little more roll of paint than normal, but it works. So I'll go back in with the thicker liner brush and just fill it in. And I'll go back and you can always make it a little thicker. At least the line is there. And you can use just a slightly wider brush too. That might just fit perfectly in there. And just start at the bottom and zip, go all the way up. A lot of these big trunks, some of it will be covered up with pine uh, leaves, pine needles and things. So um, you don't have to be super fussy. But I'm gonna put a little bank below that trunk, make it a darker area. All right. So I've got a little lighter brown because the distant trees in the back are a little bit lighter, shaded lighter. So I've got a kind of a tan, a brown mixed in with a little bit of white, very little white, and just kind of go over those a little bit so that they're distant trees. And I've got some burnt sienna on this little brush and putting in a little bit of color. My trees, some of the bark on those pines have a reddish tint to them. And so you can use a palette knife. I tried it. I had trouble holding it. So I just took my canvas and I just flipped it. I just turned it outside, and so now I can go down my trees and tap in a little bit of color and texture to those trees. It works a lot better than being a contortionist and hold your wrist a certain way. I just had to flip it. It works a lot better this way. All right, I got my canvas back upright and a nice little liner brush. I'm putting in some little pine limbs, little limbs that come out. And actually, these limbs are every which way. So, they can be upward, straight across, downward. And I just put my little liner with some not thick paint. It has to be fairly thin with thinner, not ink like, 'cause that's too thin. But you'll see when if it's too thin, it'll run. Just right, it'll stick. So I just make my little sticks and I twirl my finger, just kind of twirl it upward, and you got a nice little point on those things. It works really, really cool. And just going, it's tedious, but it looks so pretty when you're done. All right, so I've got a little filbert there, and I'm trying to gauge exactly how far in my banks should come. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going into a very dark brown, touch of black. And I'm going to reshape my bangs just a little bit. So I want them to come in a little bit more. Still deciding. And I decided to wipe out some of that land there. I've got this blue-gray. I'm going over the top of that. I just want a very thin band of land across there. The water's going to be coming over the top of that. So adding a little more blue and a little more blue there. It's just a matter of studying your picture and closely looking at the colors and get up, stand back, squint, do whatever you have to do. It just changes everything when you can do that. Or just get up and take a break, then come back and look. And then I'm adding a little more blue in there, a little more blue water. Pulling some of the banks into the water a little bit. Because it helps to get this water in first before you start messing around with the banks. So I'm adding some blue in there, some blue water. And at the base of the water there where the water is at the bottom, a little bit of white, a little more blue, because that's going to be a rush of water in there. I'm going to have a bunch of little rocks and things. Think you have too much going on, put a little bit of thinner on your brush. See, that's where I'm going to put just a little bit of rushing water where that dark blue is. It's going over that a little bit, blending. So I will have a little mass there, not quite so dark, but it's different than the other one. It's just going to be a little thinner, not so big. Adding a little bit of olive green with a touch of yellow. Just going to go across there. That's where the land is. So I'm adjusting that back there. I think I still changed it. I put more blue in there. I ended up making that more water-like. Simplifying it a little bit. Adding a little yellow at the bottom. Keeping the lines pretty straight. Putting some darker areas there that meet up with the water. A little more yellow. Touch of orange, possibly a little bit of orange. Mixed together with yellow. It lightens it up a little bit because the light is coming down that way. And just keep blending until you get the colors just the way you want it, just right. There's a lot of colors in this painting. There's a shadow there from that bank, so I want to put the darker area below that bank. That bank is going to be coming out quite a bit ways here, so you'll see. Pulling some of that color in the water. And make sure it's, daggered. You don't want any real straight lines in there other than um, the water has to be fairly straight when you're putting in water lines. Taking a dry fan brush, just going over the top. See, it's looking better and better all the time. It's just a matter of getting some light dark areas in the front. So I am expanding that big bank, going into the darker brown. And bringing it in a little past the midline. I know it looks kind of weird now, but it will flatten out. It'll look decent once we put the shades of colors in there, the light and dark. I'm going in with a little bit of orange and yellow, just tapping in some downward with a fan brush, some grassies there, here and there. Just tapping away, and I'm going to go on the other side, try and match up the colors on, but a little bit darker, put a little bit of greenery and different shades of brown in that clump there below the big tree. Okay, now I'm going in. I'm going to start putting some water lines in the around the banks and in the water. So, and that is with a pale blue, a little bit lighter than the sky there. It's phthalo, actually white with just a touch of phthalo, mix it real well. And just putting a nice little edge, a water edge along the dirt line. The water's following the angles of the dirt, the sandy area, I guess. Go along and put some definition there along between the water and the sand, staggering it, trying to make it look as natural as I can. I'll be putting some rocks and boulders in there to break it up a little bit. So, but I want to get this water in first. Get the lines in there. If you're happy with it, leave it. Just leave it. Go on to the next. And I always wipe off my palette knife before I start a new roll, because you pick up some of that dark color that's already on the canvas. All right. Making sure I have enough on my big enough roll. Just going to go around the band there, corner. I'm going to stagger in quite a bit. I'm going to go in to the bank. That really helps. And I'm going to take a little fan brush. I think it's a number 4. And I'm going to make the water a little bit rough in there. A little bit more turbulence in that area. Because it's coming around the bend. I'll be putting a few rocks in there. It'll look like um, a little bit of rushing water in there. Gonna turn the corner and all right, it's looking better and better all the time. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, and I use regular paper towel to wipe off my brushes and the palette knife. Blue shop towel I use to, collect the extra oils. All right, so I'm just taking my little fan brush and zigzagging, pushing upward, creating some a little bit of turbulent water there. And the knife helps show the angles and rush of the water. Okay, I've got a little brush, little liner. I'm putting in some little distant rocks way in the back. It's not totally black, but with a touch of brown. Putting some dark rocks way in the distance. right on the ends of those mounds of banks, and they're a little in the middle and off to the side in the water, wherever you think the water, uh, is pushing harder. And when you put the rocks in there, it just makes it look more fun. Looks more natural. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting in little dark rocks here and there, and the liner works pretty good. Kind of hold my um, brush at an angle and just kind of push them in a little bit. Okay, there's a little filbert. Gonna use that for a little bigger rock, maybe. No, I'm just using the end. You can experiment with your brushes and see which one works for you. So I switch a lot. No, two brushes make the same strokes, but I mean, whatever you're comfortable with. Just dotting some, stones in there. Back into the white, my little damn brush. Adding some little bursts of wave in there. Oh, going around the rocks a little bit. Got to have a little movement around those rocks. Just a little bit here and there. Gives them more of a realistic look. Going on the outer edge, extending that out just a little bit more toward the bank. With a little bit of blue and white. Adding a few rocks here and there. Oh, this is another little brush that I use. It's a long brush with a round end on it. I don't know what they call it. Like a little oval, and it's not soft either. It's fairly firm, but it really makes some nice boulders. Because all I do is kind of lay it down and twist it a little bit, and bam, it's there. I love it. Makes some really nice round rocks. Gonna go into the underneath that bank, put some rocks in there, bigger ones. And after a while, I'll go in and I'll highlight some of these rocks so they'll stand out. So twisting in some boulders, big rocks, and down in the corner. I have a few down there too. Fairly dark on the bottom, but I'll highlight the inside and toward the river there, the pond stream. I'll make those a little highlighted a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna go back with little fan brush. I decide I want to make that uh, stream a little more visible, and push up a little bit between the banks. Like it's a little more turbulent. But um, gives it a more natural look. It's not straight, there's levels. There's levels of water, especially with the rocks there. Putting in some rocks way in the back, little little rocks. Putting in some water lines to accentuate there by the sand. Putting in some blue, darker, little darker blue in there to show some water. So now I'm putting some more rocks there at the base of that bank. And I extended that out. See how much farther that came out? Extended that bank out so it looks better. Big old boulders there. Not real big, but it's going to be quite a few little ones, darker areas in that bank. And you could put as many as you want in there, actually. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So now I am putting some grassy areas on top of the bank. Going in with a little bit of the burnt sienna yellow, highlighting some of those areas. The sunlight is hitting that bank. Just tapping, kind of like scratching. You just kind of pushing it. All right, so now I've got a smaller brush. I'm gonna put in some dark areas in there in the bank. Not necessarily rocks, but they're just variations of color. Looks like I made that one into a rock. I'm highlighting it just a little bit with oh, it's a little bit of yellow and a little bit of oh, I would say yellow ochre. But you don't want it real super bright to highlight those rocks. Okay, tapping in the brown, the light brown, and a little bit of putting a little color there on the top of that bank. The other side and the right side. The leaves have collected in there and work my way out to the end of the bank. Oh, I'm back on the other side again. Now I am highlighting some rocks. It's just a light beige. You kind of go all over the place, but it breaks it up a little bit for me. All right, I'm putting in the big tree. Actually, it's not too big. It's just a little sapling. But I'm using it's a thicker liner. And I got brave. I'm just gonna do it. Just start at the bottom and go straight up. Nice and slow. Just keep going till you get it in there. Just it's tedious. Putting in some more little branches. I'm gonna have this one big branch that comes kind of out in the almost to the to the middle of the center of the canvas. That one's going to have some really bright yellow leaves on it. So I'm just working on my branches. You see in the distance, I did start to shape some pines in there. Just use my fan brush, zigzagging back and forth. A little bit of sap green and yellow on there, and just put in some leaves or pine boughs back there. But right now I'm working on my branches. I'm gonna lighten up the bottom just a little bit with some yellow and make it a light olive green. And same with the other side. The other side, I'm gonna make it a little bit more touch of red or orange in there, just to brighten that area up. I'm highlighting some of these boulders that are in the front. A little bit of yellow and red, just a touch, because they are brighter than the ones on the other side. Now the 1 inch, I'm making some bright yellow leaves on almost like an aspen or a birch. Big old limb hanging over, some bright yellow leaves on that. And I'm angling here and there, just touching end of my brush. It's just ever so light, just letting the bristles do their work, shaping my leaves, adding a little bit of orange color here and there amongst them. If you hold your brush just right, see, I got that brush to angle downward. It looks pretty cool, almost like a fan brush mark. Just want tiny little. My goal is round leaves. Person could use a sponge, but I decided to try it with my 1 inch, and it works. It's working pretty well. Working real well. I'll use my fan brush on the other side where I've got these, some more of these yellow stick-like bushes, or stick-like, these branches that come out with these yellow flowers on them. You'll see I hold that just right, and I can angle. Now watch, I'm gonna start doing kind of an arc, like an arch. Just softly, just tapping in and just shaping by very, very light touches. See, and you can shape that. It's like the limbs are turning toward the light. And if you tap straight on, it's like little, just tiny little leaves. But if you arch your, see, you just arch your brush, wrist, turn your wrist, and you can shape those limbs. I love it. Just put as many as you want. I didn't want to overdo on this, overwork it. Just here and there to give pops of color. It's the end of fall. Just here and there. Put another little one over here on the other side, just a little bit. And you can go back in and put in twigs and sticks and things, broken limbs or whatever you want with a liner brush for more detail. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting in sticks, just here and there, little sticks, and adding to my limbs, exposing more of the tree. I might have covered up with my leaves, but I'm putting in some extra limbs in there that are more in front. You can do as much as you want, more detail. Now I'm putting some little branches there in those bushes, just a few, real thin, very thin lines in there. Putting in more little branches. Well, I really love doing this one. It's a lot of fun. There's so many different colors, so many layers. I'm just touching up some of my big old uh, branches. Here I've got the fan brush. I'm going to add a few pine boughs in there. Adding a little more dark green at the top. Get up, stand back, squint, and you'll see little areas where you need to add certain little things. So I hope you try this one. I really love doing this one, and I hope you do too. So until next time, happy painting.